get started, and I'm happy to be here with Commissioner Garcia. San Juanito Cisneros, the principal, I know will step back here in just a moment. And then Carolyn Roberts is here from Children at Risk. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. So, Commissioner, thank you for hosting us at the Leonel Castillo Community Center. I know most of the kids just left. We still have some kids here this morning that are finishing their summer camp. And are you guys hearing us all right? Okay. And it's just so wonderful to see the incredible programming we provide. And it's so necessary to be able to do even more of this kind of work. So thank you for doing that. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the recent announcement of a bipartisan proposal on Capitol Hill on gun safety. Of course, it's a very, very difficult topic, especially given the tragedy in Uvalde just a few days ago. And so just to remind everybody the importance of the need for even more work. We have a long way to go to protect our kids from the devastating consequences of gun violence. And this is a big step. It's a necessary step. But of course, it's certainly not all that needs to be done. And I hope it's going to be simply an opportunity to move farther and farther in that direction. The reason we're here is to announce something that's very, very close to my heart. I know Commissioner Garcia's heart as well. And it's anybody who knows, either of us, that has been following the work we've been doing, knows the commitment to early childhood education, the commitment to childcare and the future of our kids. The reason why I have this commitment is an absolute no-brainer. Early childhood programs, which include high-quality childcare, have one of the strongest returns on investment of any public program that we could possibly develop. These positive effects exist and continue throughout a child's life. It increases graduation rates, future earnings, prevents ultimate contact with the criminal justice system, and so much more. On top of that, and this is important to note, half of infants and toddlers in Harris County who have working parents do not receive child care in a formal setting. Half. They may be under informal care by family members, but this often prevents parents from re-entering the workforce. Approximately 105,000 children aged 0 to 3 in Harris County with working parents live in what we call a quality child care desert, in which there are few or maybe even no child care options for quality child care that families in those areas can actually afford. This announcement today will help close that gap. That's why I'm so proud to stand here with Commissioner Garcia to announce a $48 million proposed investment in child care in Harris County, which will be voted on by Commissioner's Court tomorrow morning. This 3-year program would create up to 1,000 child care slots for children aged 0 to 3. It would increase child care slots by 10%, in ours, the 3rd largest county in the nation. The program will serve children by creating these high-quality child care opportunities all throughout Harris County, with an emphasis on communities where there are no such options. The program will serve families. It will help families afford child care, which is the 2nd most expensive household item in Harris County right now, after housing, in the family budget. The program will support the economy. It will allow women who return to work who've not been able to do so because of a lack of child care. It'll support ongoing capacity for child care providers. It'll help child care providers affected by the economic downturns of the pandemic. It'll help them recover and provide child care workers a livable wage. It will help workers and the economy. The child care providers participating are going to be required to pay staff a living wage of $15 an hour. The impact of this program will even improve equitable workforce participation. This would be the largest allocation of funding toward child care in Harris County history. It would be the largest known investment of American Rescue Plan dollars in child care by a city or by a county anywhere in our nation. The proposal emerged after 8 months of conversations and work with stakeholders like childcare providers, childcare experts, analyses of successful programs elsewhere in the country, and close collaboration with the Texas Workforce Board. The investment is made possible, of course, by the funds provided by the Biden administration, the American Rescue Plan dollars, and I'd be remiss not to thank both the administration and the legislative delegation, our congressional delegation, that fought to make sure Harris County received funds that we now could invest in such a worthy cause. I've long been an advocate and a champion for programs that enrich the lives and opportunities for our youngest kids. In the time we've been in office, the county has also established the $4.7 million Child Care Assistance Program to provide families with child care and learning opportunities during the pandemic. $500,000 in ARPA funds allowed us to invest in a child credit engagement program that helped Harris County families bring over $13 million in tax credits to Harris County. The $20 million lead abatement program will test tens of thousands of Harris County children from elevated lead levels and remove lead from their homes. We have an almost $10 million reinvestment fund for children and funding for child care centers and additional child care opportunities. And the county has implemented best-in-class family-friendly workplace policies, including 12 weeks paid leave, the first time in Harris County history we've implemented these policies for around 20,000 Harris County employees. These aren't the types of priorities, I know, that Harris County government has emphasized in the past. In the past, there has been this blind focus, somewhat narrow philosophy that government needs to be as small as possible, no ifs, ands, or buts, to focus only on roads and bridges. But the thing is, we can do that and more. Just a couple weeks ago, we cut the ribbon on the largest flood control project Harris County has ever undertaken. Then a trail at Brays Bayou, and now today, the largest investment in early childhood education, the most ambitious investments in criminal justice policies and safety. We can do it all, and we are doing so much. And so we need to accept that there are places where our community simply has fallen behind. Half of kids who need it not being able to have access to early childhood education, that is a need for our community, and we are here to bridge it. So we have this obligation to meet the true needs of our community. If early childhood education is one of them, we're going to continue to be there and make sure that our families are getting the support that they need. Those early childhood investments, including those already developed and those still in planning, seek to improve outcomes for children and families, and will have impacts not just now, but for generations to come. And I'm so, so proud to be supporting our children and our families right here in Harris County. I'm going to repeat my remarks briefly in Spanish, and then I'll pass it on to Commissioner Garcia and to Ms. Roberts, and I don't know if Principal Cisneros, if you'd like to make a few remarks, you're more than welcome as well. Quiero darle las gracias más que nada al comisionado García, cuyo centro de comunidad es realmente un ejemplo a este modelo de guarderías, de la educación temprana, y también, obviamente, a todos quienes trabajan aquí. Hemos escuchado las noticias el día de ayer acerca de una propuesta bipartidista en cuanto a esfuerzos legislativos para prevenir más tiroteos como los que sucedieron en Uvalde. Me da algo de esperanza ver ese progreso, pero obviamente sabemos que no es suficiente, que falta bastante en esa propuesta, pero paso a paso se llega al resultado. Entonces espero que basado en esto podamos trabajar juntos en reformas reales para prevenir la violencia armada en nuestro país. Todos quienes me conozcan mi trabajo, el del comisionado también, saben que nos importa mucho el futuro de las familias y las inversiones en el futuro de los niños, el cuidado y la educación de nuestros niños más jóvenes. La razón detrás de inversiones en educación temprana es una obviedad. La realidad es que hay pocos programas públicos, programas gubernamentales que tengan impacto tan grande como un programa en una inversión en la educación temprana. Los niños con educación temprana resultan con mayores ganancias a través de su carrera, menos contactos con el sistema de justicia penal y más. Además, hemos aprendido que en el condado Harris la mitad de los niños pequeños cuyos padres trabajan no reciben cuidado en una entidad formal. O sea, los cuida un miembro de la familia. Esto quiere decir que hay miembros de familia que están sin poder trabajar, aunque quieran trabajar, por tener que cuidar al niño, porque simplemente no tienen los fondos, no tienen la oportunidad de mandar al niño o niña a una guardería. Hay alrededor de 105,000 niños de 0 a 3 años con padres que trabajan, que viven en lo que llamamos desiertos de cuidado infantil. Hay áreas en nuestra comunidad donde básicamente no hay guarderías y no hay guarderías que la comunidad pueda pagar. Es por eso que estamos anunciando con mucho orgullo una propuesta de anunciando con mucho orgullo una propuesta de $48 millones para el cuidado infantil en el condado Harris. Vamos a votar en esta propuesta mañana en la reunión de la Corte de Comisionados. Este programa dura 3 años, crearía espacio para 1,000 niños de 0 a 3 años en el condado Harris en guarderías. Incrementaría los espacios de guarderías por 10% en nuestro condado, el tercero más grande de la nación. El programa apoyará a los niños, creando todos estos espacios para guarderías y cuidado infantil. El programa va a servir a las familias, ayudando a familias que no pueden pagar por cuidado infantil, ya que el cuidado infantil es el segundo artículo doméstico más caro en promedio en el presupuesto familiar, después del hogar. El programa apoyará la economía, ayudando a que las mujeres regresen al trabajo, que quieran regresar. También ayudará a las guarderías que ya existen. Hay muchas que han perdido trabajadores, han perdido fondos durante la pandemia y necesitan apoyo para seguir existiendo. Ayudar a los trabajadores, se requiere que se pague $15 la hora si van a participar en este programa. La propuesta se desarrolló después de 8 meses de conversaciones, trabajo con cuidadores de niños, con expertos, análisis de qué ha funcionado en otras áreas del país. Esta sería la mayor asignación de fondos para el cuidado de niños que se ha visto en la historia del condado. Sería también la mayor inversión conocida de fondos de ARPA, de fondos federales, en el tema del cuidado infantil, por cualquier ciudad o condado en cualquier parte del país. La inversión viene de los fondos del Plan de Rescate estadounidense, de ARPA, entonces hay que agradecerle obviamente a la administración Biden y también a los congresistas que trabajaron en esa inversión. Desde hace rato hemos estado trabajando en este tema, $4.7 millones en el Fondo de Impacto para la Primera Infancia, ese fueron casi $10 millones, $4.7 millones para ayudar al cuidado infantil durante la pandemia, $500,000 que ayudaron a que nuestra comunidad recibiera $13 millones en créditos para los impuestos, $20 millones para remover el plomo de los hogares contaminados y así ayudar a la salud de los niños. Además, hemos trabajado en políticas para nuestros trabajadores en el condado Harris, alrededor de 20,000 trabajadores que ahora, si sean padre o madre, pueden tomar 12 semanas pagadas para poder estar con el niño o niña recién nacido. Estas no son las prioridades que históricamente el gobierno ha tenido en mente aquí en el condado Harris. Históricamente se enfocaban simplemente en las calles y de repente el control de las inundaciones. Nosotros estamos haciendo ambas cosas. Hace 2 semanas anunciamos el proyecto, el haber terminado el proyecto más grande de control de inundaciones que el condado Harris jamás había visto. Y hoy día estamos anunciando la inversión más grande en cuidado infantil que ha visto este condado. Entonces, podemos hacer ambas cosas y lo estamos haciendo. Tenemos una obligación en trabajar no solamente lo más básico, lo más mínimo, sino también las necesidades que tenga la comunidad en general. Entonces, como ven, esta iniciativa va a transformar las vidas y el futuro para muchos, no solamente el día de hoy, sino también para generaciones que vienen. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here, Commissioner Garcia. Thank you for hosting us at your community center.
Thank you, Judge. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adrian Garcia, County Commissioner of Precinct 2, of which this incredible facility is at. You know, I have worked to define these facilities, typically called community centers, but I like to refer to them as empowerment centers because we want to make sure that everyone, and in particular our children, come in, have a great experience, but leave more empowered than how they arrived. And that's exactly what's happening here. And let me also just say that according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, childcare is considered unaffordable if it requires more than 7% of a family's income, which is the typical challenge that exists in Precinct 2. Yet the typical Texas family is paying 15.7% of its income for infant care for one child, according to the Economic Policy Institute. By the 7% standard, only 15.8% of Texas families can afford infant care. We can do better, and we're doing it better in Harris County. When people question the role of government being in their lives, here's a perfect example of what good local government can do. This is not just an investment in our most precious resource, children. It also helps to build small businesses. Today is an example of how effectively we have worked to address a multitude of issues that are important for most of the Harris County families. Our challenge is to find ways to address many concerns and competing priorities. As an example, since 2019, we've invested over $200 million of new money in public safety, including increases for our sheriff's office, constables, courts, and district attorney's office. However, this particular investment is the greatest investment that we are making when it goes towards dismantling the cradle to prison pipeline. It is happening right here as we speak. Those increases that have been made are needed because of decades of underinvestment in early childhood education. The little ones of today are getting a better chance for tomorrow with this particular investment. This is not just the right thing to do, it's smart and will create generational impact. Long after our tenure here, Judge, being involved in the county, our safety will be improved. To those who say this isn't the role of county government, I say that it should be the role of every level of government to ensure the better growth and development of our children and their ultimate success. The state has defunded childcare, defunded our schools, and defunded care, including mental health care. So the county, quite logically, has to step in yet again to pick up the pieces where the state leadership has fallen short. Instead of reimbursement and a lengthy process, we will help support mom and pop daycares by paying for slots rather than paying them back. Parents staying home limits their ability to keep working and takes potential tax revenue away. Decades of studies have proven that not getting nurturing care and education at a young age will likely lead to dangerous outcomes all too often. And as a former law enforcement officer and a former sheriff, I have seen the wasted capital, human capital, that we have in our county jail system. Kids who miss out on early childhood care are more likely to live a life of crime, regretfully. They are more likely to develop mental health issues. They are more likely to drop out of school, increasing their likelihood of entering the criminal justice system. One of the biggest challenges for parents in Texas today is the lack of access to affordable childcare. Paying a living wage means we will reduce the high turnover rate among daycare workers. Aside from all the data that shows how valuable this investment will be, we do this because it's simply the right thing to do. And I'm proud to stand here with you, Judge Hidalgo, because as I said at the State of the County address when you talked about this, that I was just over the moon because I was the former sheriff. I was the sheriff, rather, when the community recognized the need to do such a critical and profound investment in early childhood education and early childhood care. Yet the county leadership didn't just was blind to it. They were, quite frankly, very aware of it, and they worked aggressively to keep it from happening. A horrible, horrible act, an injustice, an act of injustice that took place. So I'm proud to stand here with you, Judge, on the eve of this vote, and I hope that all of our colleagues will recognize the value that it brings to our community. And I will just close on this point by saying that why is early childhood education important to me? It's pretty simple. I recognize that I've had a very, very blessed life. Growing up in this very same neighborhood, growing up not speaking English, and growing up in a tough neighborhood where tough things happen, recognizing that at any given point, the environment of the community could have steered me in a different direction. I was fortunate to have two very caring parents watching my every step, but by the same token, too many good families have had the community environment overwhelm their good actions. But when you have education put into the equation of what a good family does and wants to do, it makes everything better, makes everything easier. It creates predictable, positive, profound outcomes to the future of every child. And that's why this is important to me, because a child growing up today in some of the same circumstances that I grew up in will not likely have the opportunities that I had. I'm not about to pull up the ladder. I want to ensure that every child today in any neighborhood across Harris County, in particular in Precinct 2, will have the opportunity to get the early childhood education that they rightfully deserve and should have, so that their future, their success, can already be counted on. Quiero darle las gracias a la jueza Hidalgo por estar aquí. Estamos aquí para reconocer que la inversión que estamos haciendo es una de las inversiones más profundas que hemos hecho. Aunque hemos invertido más de $200 millones en la seguridad pública, sea en el alguacil, en las oficinas de los constables, en la oficina de la procuradora, esta inversión realmente está pronosticando el éxito de los niños de nuestras comunidades. Y por eso me da tanto gusto de estar aquí, porque reconocemos que muchas familias quieren lo mejor para sus hijos, quieren asegurar que sus hijos van a tener éxito, pero muchas veces no tienen los recursos económicos para poder llevar a cabo el deseo que ellos quieren para sus hijos. Y aquí lo estamos haciendo. Aquí está, con toda la seguridad, estamos ayudando que esos niños pueden tener un paso adelante en su futuro que va a estar brindado con éxito y oportunidades. Oportunidades que yo he tenido, pero si un niño con el mismo circunstancias que yo tenía en mi juventud, ese niño posiblemente no puede tener las mismas oportunidades, sino por tener mejor educación. Entonces, por eso esto es importante para mí, por eso tengo tanto orgullo, porque cuando yo escuché que la jueza habló de esto hace un par de años, me dio tanto gusto, porque yo fui un testigo como el alguacil en ese tiempo, cuando se habló de lo mismo. Pero los elegidos del condado en ese tiempo realmente no estaban ciegos a lo que se estaba proponiendo, pero si no estaban muy atentos y realmente trabajaron en contra un proyecto como tal. Entonces, eso fue una injusticia para los niños, que los tantos niños que se podían ver ayudados por esos últimos años. Pero lo estamos haciendo aquí y nuevamente espero que mis colegas, todos, lleguen a realmente comprometerse al futuro, al éxito y al bienestar de los niños del condado de Harris. Gracias. Judge?
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead.
Caroline?
Thank you so much. High-quality early education is the foundation to future academic success. A young child's brain is malleable, making early engagement an excellent buffer to the negative effects associated with growing up in economic insecurity. We applaud Judge Hidalgo, Commissioner Garcia, and Harris County for prioritizing access to quality childcare that supports children and families as well as our economy. We must improve access to quality childcare across settings for working parents. There are 47 childcare deserts in Harris County alone, making up 30% of our communities. A childcare desert means demand is over 3 times higher than supply of seats. Currently, there are 62 childcare seats per 100 children of working parents in the county. 54% of low-income children in Harris County live in childcare subsidy deserts, which means that they do not have access to affordable childcare. And 90% of low-income children live in quality deserts, which means that although they may have access to childcare, they do not have access to quality care. Families should have choices of high-quality childcare no matter what type of program works best for their family or where they live. We must support and strengthen the childcare workforce through compensation and education. 56% of childcare teachers qualify for at least one form of public assistance because of low wages. If we want to not only keep our current childcare workforce, but also build a pipeline for future educators to come into this field, we have to make sure it is one that has a viable livelihood. Finally, we won't be able to create the best ECE system for children and families without increased investment into our childhood education systems. Again, we want to thank Judge Hidalgo, Commissioner Garcia, and Harris County for taking the steps to make this enormous investment in our children and families. Now is the time to ensure that parents are able to go to work confident that their child is receiving a quality early education and that their early childhood educators are compensated and respected for their profession and expertise. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Carolyn. This is Carolyn Roberts, is the Associate Director for Policy, Children at Risk. Principal Cisneros, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Good afternoon, and thank you to Judge Hidalgo and Commissioner Adrian Garcia for inviting me to offer a few remarks regarding work here at Lina Castillo. Each day, as I prepare to enter this building as a leader, I ask to be filled with wisdom and right judgment, because the work we do is laying the foundation for our future. We are planting seeds within each of our students and nurturing them so they may develop strong roots. We want our children to learn how to communicate effectively, solve conflict, possess self-esteem, and recognize their inherent worth. We want them to be self-reliant, yet know when and how to ask for help if needed. In the midst of developing the numeracy and literacy skills, we know that our most sacred duty is to empower these precious children to know how to relate with themselves, with others, and with the world around them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take any questions.
Judge, is money connected to the program you had a presser about a couple of weeks ago, childcare funding related? Is this the same batch of money or separate batch?
We've done so many programs that I'm trying to remember which one you're talking about. Yeah.
You were talking about a similar thing where you're investing into early pre-K childcare.
Yes.
There's a deadline coming up.
Yeah, so we did one that was for okay. So we've done 2 recent programs. One was the Youth Reinvestment Fund, the Youth Justice Reinvestment Fund. That program is from American Rescue Plan dollars, and that is to help kids, older kids, at risk of getting involved with the criminal justice system before they end up involved in gun violence. The other program we discussed, it was calling attention to a deadline that was coming up for state and federal dollars. That was the one we did most recently. And it was funding because so many child care facilities have suffered economically during the pandemic. So not only is there a lack of childcare, but we risk losing some more of them. And so we were encouraging Harris County providers to apply, and they did heed that warning, and they did apply, which is great because we're bringing more funds into Harris County. This program, we've already invested $10 million from American Rescue Plan dollars in order, that's for our incubator fund to help support programs that help kids develop speech when they're very young, programs that help kids in the foster system reunite with their foster parents, and programs that support capacity building in child care centers. We did that already a few months ago. This is the most ambitious program of the lot if you talk about monetary investment. So $48 million, around $2 million is for evaluation of the program, so it'll help us see really what the impacts are of these child care slots. And then the rest is going to go via request for proposals to two entities. One entity that's going to identify the child care centers that are going to receive the funding, and then another entity that's going to identify, help promote the availability of child care to families in the area.
And so how quickly, vote is tomorrow, how quickly do you see this getting on the ground?
So the timeline is we'll be up and running probably by the end of the year around. So right now we have if the vote takes place tomorrow, then the request for proposals, this is simply a commitment of funding, right? We haven't yet been through the RFP process. So the RFP process would be launched, would close in July. And then the RFP evaluation committee would make a decision by the end of the month of July, and then the contracts hopefully would come to Commissioner's Court with the selected entities later in the summer, sometime in August, so we would begin to see this on the ground toward the end of the year, perhaps around November. And so the entities that are going to be chosen through the RFP are sort of the ones that are going to actually go and identify the many child care providers. Yes, sí.
Yo tengo una pregunta, una parte ya la respondió en inglés, que son dos preguntas. Una, ¿de qué manera van a distribuir esos 48 millones de dólares para buscar esas necesidades? Y la segunda pregunta es un proyecto de 3 años. ¿Qué va a ocurrir después de 3 años para continuar con fondos para este programa? ¿Se pudieran incrementar los impuestos o de dónde va a salir ese dinero para continuar, si va a continuar?
Yeah, great questions, muy buenas preguntas. En cuanto a, respondo en español lo que ya expliqué en inglés. Primero, los fondos son 48 millones de dólares, alrededor de 2 millones van para la evaluación académica de este programa, para entender el impacto del programa y ver también si hay mejoras que hay que implementar. El resto de los fondos se van a distribuir hacia los centros de cuidado infantil. Entonces, ahorita vamos por empezar, si se aprueba el proyecto mañana, un proceso un proceso competitivo para que entidades apliquen. El condado, un comité de selección, elegirá 2 entidades. Una entidad va a identificar las guarderías que recibirán los dólares y otra entidad va a ayudar a conectar las familias con los nuevos espacios en las guarderías. En cuanto a bueno, el horario para todo esto es, ya se elegirán las 2 entidades alrededor de agosto y después el programa se lanzará a finales de año, posiblemente en noviembre. Los fondos son para 3 años. ¿Qué sucede después de los 3 años? Hay dos puntos muy interesantes. Uno es que hay hay comunidades que necesitan centros infantiles, pero esos centros infantiles simplemente no existen porque no hay inversión inicial. Entonces, esto va a ayudar a crear centros infantiles donde no los hay, y aun cuando se acaben estos fondos, es posible que la comunidad en sí pueda seguir invirtiendo en esa guardería ya que queda cerca a casa. Otro punto es que hay subsidios por parte del gobierno federal y estatal. Hay muchas guarderías que no reciben subsidios, por esto que mencionó el comisionado, que hasta el día de hoy los subsidios estatales se pagan como reembolsos. Entonces hay guarderías pequeñas que simplemente no tienen la capacidad financiera de recibir un reembolso, necesitan los fondos inicialmente. Este programa va a ayudar a que más entidades decidan participar en el programa de reembolso, y así vamos vamos a calificar para más fondos estatales que podrán continuar con estos espacios cuando se acabe el dinero. Finalmente, sí debo mencionar que estamos trabajando en aún más iniciativas con los fondos de ARPA, entonces espero que a medida que sigamos el trabajo vayamos a poder invertir aún más en estos programas y en algún futuro probablemente hablar con la comunidad a ver si nos ayudan con una inversión permanente, pero por ahora estamos simplemente estudiando hacia dónde vamos con esta inversión inicial.
Cuando dice ayudar a la comunidad, una inversión permanente significa impuestos,
En este momento no sabemos. En este momento no sabemos porque no sabemos si estos 1,000 espacios los va a poder cubrir fondos estatales cuando se acabe esto, si van a venir fondos federales, si vamos a poder invertir fondos locales. Obviamente esa podría ser una opción, pero estamos a muchos años de tener esa discusión. Yeah, so perhaps I'll answer the question in English. It was a good question. What happens when these funds run out? So this is 3 years worth of funds. And there's two things that this program is going to do that's also important for capacity building. One is there are certain communities that perhaps could afford the child care, but there simply is no child care center in that community. And so this is going to help build child care centers capability where there isn't any. And it's possible that could then be supported by the community itself. Another point is there is child care subsidy money on the table that right now child cares are not accepting because they work in a reimbursement model, as Commissioner Garcia mentioned. And so what this program does in part is it shifts from a reimbursement model to an upfront payment model. And ultimately that will allow child care centers to accept, to sign up for for child care financial aid, so to speak, from the state, and their state funds money on the table that's not being used that could potentially fill some of this gap when the funding runs out. We are also continuing to work to see if we can make other investments. We're all waiting to see if there will be more federal funds, state funds, but as the years go by, we see the impact of these funds. We will be discussing what we can do to make sure that not only can we maintain these slots, but how can we build even more child care slots, because obviously it's a portion of the need.
Judge, Commissioner Tom Ramsey is asking Commissioner Schwarzkopf to approve the creation of the first ever schools commission in Harris County. What do you, the Commissioner, think of the proposal? Do you think this is the best way to ensure school safety next year?
I've not gotten many details from the commissioner. All I know is just that headline, so I'm loath to comment. I will say, of course, and it's happened again with Uvalde. I think people are fed up because it happens after every tragedy. They blame the open door. They blame the lack of an armed officer. Well, now we had armed officers, but it didn't seem to make a difference. They blame any manner of things except for the guns. And so part of what we have to do is accept that we can't let this tragedy be like all the other tragedies, that we can't have a conversation about violent crime without talking about guns, that we can't have a conversation about massacres that happen with guns without talking about guns. So I'll entertain the conversation tomorrow, see what more details he offers, but my focus is going to continue to be on what the majority of Americans, the majority of Texans want to see, which is some common sense gun reforms to go with anything else.
I echo the comments that the judge has made. I haven't seen a full proposal, don't know the details of it, so I'm not really sure what he's considering. However, I'll simply say that there is a Harris County Department of Education that may have a framework already in place. So we all are, I believe, united in never ever seeing this type of tragedy again. But I remain resolute in that the investment we're making here will make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.